And I'd like to ask that we put items 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8 on consent without objection. Any concerns? Hearing none, those are all on consent and approved. Item number 4.
Item number 4, communication from the mayor relative to the exemption of the following positions for the Los Angeles Department of Transportation for the Civil Service pursuant to Charter Section 1001B. 1 Assistant General Manager. 2, 1 Chief Management Analyst. 3, 1 Chief of Transit Programs. 4, 1 Senior Project Coordinator. 5, 1 Project Coordinator.
And do we have staff present to present on that? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Councilman. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you this morning about these requested exemptions for the Department of Transportation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about them at this time.
I wonder if you could walk us through each of the positions and
Sure.
why we think they're necessary as exempt positions.
So the Assistant General Manager position as a re-exemption was vacated by Dee Allen when she retired in September. There are 4 Assistant General Managers at the Department of Transportation. This particular position will oversee parking, transit, and the department's sustainability efforts. And so this position is a high-level position, requires a pretty wide array of experience unique to transportation and also to managing a relatively large and complex operation in terms of the parking side of the house. That includes the meters, the structures, and the adjudication side of the operation. So we feel as though we need to have as wide array of candidates for that position as possible, given its sort of unique expertise. The Chief Sustainability Officer for the department is a position that was allocated in last year's budget. It is charged with implementing the Sustainable City Plan for Los Angeles. The Department of Transportation and the Sustainable City Plan is required to do a few things. 1, achieve a 50-50 mode split with single occupant vehicles and more sustainable forms of transportation. 2, help the city achieve an increase in its walk score, which measures the walkability of the neighborhoods and the city as a whole, which relates to both land use and infrastructure. Also oversee the electrification of our own fleet as well as the fleet sort of on the streets of Los Angeles. And so what we sort of the bucket of programs underneath this position includes first of its kind programs like the bike share program, which is launching next year, expansion of the car sharing program, preparing for the arrival of connected autonomous vehicles, overseeing the position needs to have expertise in transportation planning, needs to understand how to effectively sort of manage the first and last mile connections to transit with a wide variety of mobility options that are sort of showing up that change every day and are showing up in the city. They need to understand the maintenance and operation of our system because we think that ATSAC is going to play a key role in achieving a sustainable sort of future for the city, including transit prioritization in our signal system, et cetera, and also needs to pioneer public-private partnerships with the city. So needs to be able to navigate both the private sector and the layers of leadership within the city. So things like the arrival of a company called Bridge, which provides sort of dynamic van pooling, and figuring out how we are going to bring those kinds of things into the city in partnership with the private sector. So it requires a pretty broad array of specific transportation knowledge, both from a planning, maintenance and operations, and also achieving public-private partnerships. So it's a different kind of role for the department and oversees kind of the rollout of new programs related to shared use mobility. So we feel that that combination of expertise is somewhat unique, and we need to be able to invite folks from inside and outside the city to compete for that position. The Chief of Transit Programs, similarly, when we think about the arrival of, driverless transit, small transit, on-demand transit, we need to be able to sort of draw from a broad array of folks who may be able to sort of pioneer some of these things in the city, because the world of transportation planning and the Department of Transportation is changing. We're in the infrastructure delivery business, but we have to also now be in the mobility management business. We have to figure out how to participate in, the development of, smartphone ticketing, of mobile applications that allow people to string together multiple choices along their trip. So to take a bike share bike to the bus stop, get on a bus, get off the bus, get in a car share car, and figure out how we work with companies that are providing these kind of applications. The senior project coordinator position is related to Vision Zero. So that's a key policy sort of pillar in the Sustainable City Plan, Mobility Plan, the Department's strategic plan. It's also an executive directive. There are a handful of cities in the United States that have a Vision Zero sort of policy goal. And the kind of safety analysis and also partnership building is really new for the Department of Transportation. So to achieve Vision Zero, we are going to have to do a blend of education, enforcement, outreach, engineering, and evaluation. And so it's a pretty specialized, very highly safety-focused position. And it's really the seed for Vision Zero inside the department. We have several other positions that are going to support that work, transportation engineering and planning positions, but we felt that we needed to have at least one of them to be able to go out and find somebody who has specific safety expertise. And then the project coordinator position is related to the Great Streets Initiative. And Great Streets is really about creative placemaking. Creative placemaking is a blend of community organizing, urban design, and transportation planning and engineering. And so that's another example where we have several other positions that we're going to pursue in the civil service classification that will support that work. But we wanted to seed that kind of specific expertise in the department so that over time we can grow that expertise in the department inside the engineering and planning practices that we have. So those are kind of a little bit of insight into what each of those positions is going to be doing and why we felt like, each of them is sort of related to a key policy outcome. There's an urgency for us because we have specific benchmarks that we need to meet in pretty short order. And each of them represents kind of a first step to be able to seed specific expertise inside the department while we grow teams around each of the positions.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions, and generally this is becoming a problem because we have 50 exempt positions, and every meeting we have a number of requests. So at some point we're going to blow through this and not really have a civil service system, but a frequently exempt system. So I think we have to look at these a little more carefully. Now, I know the chief management analyst and Chief of Transit Programs positions have been traditionally hired by civil service. So what makes this time different than previous times?
I think for each of them, those industries are changing at a rapid rate. And the Chief Sustainability Analyst in particular, as I mentioned, is overseeing programs that we are trying out for the first time in the city. They also have taxis and franchises to oversee because the taxi industry is undergoing pretty major sea change in how they are going to continue to operate in the city of Los Angeles. There's a tension with the arrival of connected vehicles and how we are going to sort of position the city to be ready for a future with that kind of technology on the street. And it has the potential to have huge positive outcomes in terms of carpooling, ride matching, peer-to-peer car sharing, et cetera, but also has the potential to be a sort of a novelty that's only available to the very wealthy that would exacerbate the income gaps that we have in our city. So we need somebody who can understand that cross-section of infusing technology and transportation, building partnerships with private companies in the interest of achieving greater goals that we have around equity and sustainability. So, for sort of both of those positions, that's really key. Somebody who can understand the complexity of how the market is changing, because it is. And we're going to continue to be asked to evaluate every day. There's a new vendor that wants to come and operate in Los Angeles, and that includes scooter sharing and motorcycle sharing and multiple other sort of opportunities that we have, some of them positive, some of them maybe not positive. So we need somebody who's going to be an expert in an emerging field. This is not something that we have on the shelf that we typically see inside the traditional engineering or planning or even management analyst functions. So that's why we feel as though we want to be able to open up the pool and be able to bring in and offer these positions to folks inside and outside the department. But we wanted at least to have the opportunity to pursue that expertise, in a broader sort of on the national realm.
And the positions of senior project coordinator and project coordinator, pretty similar to civil classes like management analyst and management assistant. Why couldn't we just seek to fill those from those classes?
Both of them include a lot of community organizing, and I would say that's not something that we typically expect from the management analyst class. We are trying to change the way that we deliver transportation projects so that it truly is community driven, and being able to go out and navigate the wide array of neighborhood advocacy nonprofits out there, and deliver things that are first of its kind. Vision Zero is part of an effort to do something that no other city has done in terms of getting to zero traffic deaths in 10 years. It requires creative thinking. It requires new analysis. It requires a deep understanding of what's going on the state and national sort of realms from a research perspective. And it requires a sort of specialized expertise, both in transportation safety in the case of Vision Zero and in creative placemaking, which again is not something that I would typically expect a management analyst to be able to sort of to dive into. You need to have a strong transportation background blended with the ability to sort of push the envelope on how we do participatory budgeting, how we do street design at the same time.
Okay, and is there a rep from the mayor's office here that could answer a question on great streets? I don't think so. Any other questions, members?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Director. So this comes up almost every meeting of this committee now. Some department comes in and says that they need this many people that are exempt. And it's always hard for the person in your position because they say, well, this person needs to have all these talents, which assumes that the people that work here don't have them. So I think we're coming to an understanding of it more broadly. That's much broader than the transportation department. My question to you is, how do you decide which positions you're going to pursue exempt status for? So, for example, you and I have talked about positions related to the Crenshaw line, because I need that, that to me should be, I would love it if you were talking to me about that today. So how do you decide which positions you bring to us for exempt, and then which positions just kind of you wait as long as it takes to find someone?
Yeah, and I understand the question. I appreciate the question, and I would say we don't take it lightly, and we don't. We look at sort of a combination of things. From my perspective, it includes sort of urgency and timeliness, and needing to bring somebody on board relatively quickly. Second, it includes bringing outside expertise and infusing outside expertise into the city. I think that is a net good for the city. I think it is important to be able to have people from outside come into the city and come into our departments. They bring different backgrounds, different cultures, different ideas, different ways of doing things. That is a good shot in the arm sometimes for us, and that includes everybody from the top all the way down. And then finally looking at the specific mix of skills, and do I think that particular mix of skills is is something we have in the city already, or something that we're going to either need to grow it slowly, or we're going to need to sprinkle at least one person in from the outside to kind of be a catalyst to grow that expertise more quickly, right? So I guess it's the difference between, the Oakland A's that have a farm team and kind of, invest in growth over time versus New York Yankees who just want to bring in talent from the outside. I'm an A's fan, so I want to have it both ways. I want to be able to sprinkle in a little bit from outside and grow that expertise as quickly as possible because I'm impatient and I want to get things done. And for each of these, I think I described that they have, for Great Streets, there's 3 other positions, including civil service positions, Provision 0 as well. Civil service positions sort of surround that team. So this is about, I can grow a team from within, and then if I could bring in, somebody from the outside, I can kind of percolate that expertise and experience inside the department. So it's not simple, and it's certainly not something that we do lightly because we at least from my perspective, overall, I want the city to be able to use those exempt positions in a really thoughtful way because I think it benefits everybody if we can do that smartly. So I'm, try to bring a proposal forward that is the sort of, minimum amount that I think I need, and that will sort of grow these key initiatives that I want to focus on.
So even if these exempt positions go through, if for some reason we find someone in civil service, you could still fill it with civil service.
They are open to anybody inside and outside the city.
So if we open it up, but you end up eventually hiring a civil service positions, this would not count towards the exemption then? Or
I understand your question. Yeah. So could we convert some of them to civil service positions after we fill them? Is that the question?
I mean, assuming that once the position gets, we allow for the exemption.
Right.
But for some reason, you find someone in civil service, in city, already working in the city, who you think is qualified and you hire.
Right.
Then would that count as an exemption as well, or?
That position would obviously, what it would currently reflect is that the exemption was approved, but it's vacant because it was actually filled by a civil service position.
Oh.
So,
So we could come back and
that exemption would still be available to be filled.
right.
Would we be able to take it back so it wouldn't count against us?
That is something that we are looking at as far as how to, we do have a number of exemptions that are currently vacant that departments may have or may have not filled, either with an individual or somebody from civil service. There is a lot of those positions, but we would have to check in. The charter doesn't specifically state how to, let's say, retrieve those exemptions, but that would be addressed in our discussion in the future.
Okay. And I fully agree with you, Salita, regarding the need for new skill sets and the fact that we have to think outside the box, especially a lot of the programs you're working on, and our office has been working closely with yours. And I do know you need more staff. But at the same time, I do understand, I agree, our Councilman Harris Dawson's concern about the fact that this is happening more frequently. And I believe a couple of meetings ago, we asked the Personnel Department for a report on all exemptions, right?
Yes, and that report is currently being, it's completed and will be forwarded to the council.
Great. In that report, can we include the
question you just...
Yeah, the other question I asked.
Right.
And so I think we should approach this as an overall policy, not, I don't want to nitpick on this one department, because especially for Department of Transportation, because I know they need it, because we've been really pushing from them. So I'm very inclined to support what we see here, but I do have concerns, and we do need that full, broader report, and looking forward to that.
Oh, I have concerns too, and I think if we approve exemptions at this rate, we are going to blow through them in no time. So here's what I'd suggest. I'd like to ask that we continue this item for 2 weeks. If the department wants to separate out the first 3 and the last 2 as a separate motion instead, I'll just waive out the first 3. But I want some extra time to look at the last 2. I'm not convinced that they're a higher priority than anything else that we typically see, and I think we're getting inundated with items, including some that I don't think are absolutely essential.
You're talking about the senior project coordinator and the project coordinator as the last 2 versus
Yes,
the first
yes,
3?
the project
That's
coordinator
fine.
positions.
Council member, I may want to point out, there's a time limit on these items. If they're not disapproved, I think, by November 25th, then they're presumed to be approved. So that's something that you may want to consider.
Okay, well, if they'd be deemed approved anyway, there's no harm in holding it and trying to take a look at it. So that's what I would ask you to do, to come back with a split of these 2. We'll waive out the first one and get it on a council agenda and take a closer look at the second one, unless there's...
So the first 3 positions move ahead, but the 2, the senior...
Well, I
and
can't separate them, so if you'd come back with 2 separate motions, my understanding is I can't separate them.
Can we separate them?
I don't see why you could not separate them. You could just recommend, yeah.
It's just that you have to take it, if you don't take an affirmative action, they're all going to become approved.
But you could take certain ones and just move them forward. And then if there are a couple of others that you want to get some additional information on, you can just keep those in committee. So basically bifurcate the request.
If we can bifurcate it, then that's what I'd suggest, that we move the first 3 forward, and we hold the 2 project coordinator positions.
Member, make a motion to bifurcate and take a vote on that, and then move forward on whatever action you want on the 2 separate parts.
Okay,
So I'm putting forward such a motion.
I'm sorry,
I said I'm putting forward such a motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
take a vote.
so all in favor of bifurcating? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? So that is bifurcated, and then all in favor of moving the first 3 positions as one motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed, and all in favor of continuing the second 2 for a later date. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So those are,
We can't continue for the other one.
Well,
still gonna be
what'll
approved
happen,
separately.
unless you take, unless
We'd
the
have to call a
council takes
special
them up.
meeting.
Right,
Council also does that.
right. Now,
Right.
you have the option of, getting some additional information and moving that out of committee onto council before the 25th. But if the council does not act to disapprove by the 25th, they're deemed approved.
right.
Could I add
Applies
just
to the
one
council,
quick?
too.
We had a couple of amendments that I think we had submitted. I want to make sure those were captured.
And
Okay, my understanding in regard to the amendments for the, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the Assistant General Manager position, the experience is going to be changed from 10 years to 3 years full-time experience. Looks like in a management role. Additionally, for the 5th position, the project coordinator, this would be actually reside in the Department of Transportation and have a reporting relationship there. Wasn't clarified, but it would not be reporting to the mayor's office as it was explained in the letter. That would be the.
Which position?
Correct.
That
The
would
project
be
coordinator.
the project coordinator position, which at this point we are, we have voted to more or less hold on to.
And just to note again, the deadline is November 25th, which is a week from today.
correct. Okay, so we will, without objection, we'll add those amendments to the motions that we've just passed. Item number 5.
Item number 5, continue from September 16, 2015. Motion, Krikorian Martinez et al., relative to instructing the CLA and CAO to report in regard to the average time a city employee takes off during pregnancy and for bonding purposes. the costs and consequences of parents leaving the city's workforce after having a child, with said report to include the feasibility and budgetary impacts of offering city employees 4 weeks paid parental leave for bonding purposes. This matter has also been referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
And do we have staff that are prepared to report on this item? If not, we'll hold it and see if they appear magically at a later point in the meeting. If they don't, we'll just continue it. Item number 9.
Item 9 is continued from September 16, 2015. Motion, Wesson Koretz Weezer, relative to the CLA and Department of Animal Services and other appropriate agencies reporting in regard to providing assistance to homeless pet owners and related matters. This matter has also been referred to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dana Brown, Department of Animal Services. So the department has already been working on this motion. We're taking a look at relevant laws such as the tethering laws that may have an unintended restrictive impact on homeless pet owners. The department does expect today to receive instructions during this meeting from this committee to get a full understanding of the expectations of the motion, and we will be ready to provide a full report back based on those instructions.
Okay. Do you have examples of services that are provided in other jurisdictions to homeless pet owners?
No, at this time, the department is, we have been working on a response to this motion, but it was our understanding that we would get more specific instructions from this body before having to make a full report. So while we've been working on it, we are not in a position to report on it just yet.
Let's see. Well, I'm not sure that we were necessarily prepared to offer that much direction. So maybe we need to.
I have some ideas.
Well, we'll certainly hear them and see if it's enough to not continue it and
if we're gonna
look at it more closely. Well, I don't know. Let's hear your suggestion.
Well, the nature of the kinds of things I was expecting to see from this motion is sort of what Animal Services does in a more typical natural emergency as the city of LA is declaring a state of emergency. So what kinds of measures are taken and which of those measures are applicable to the situation of homelessness in the city today. Secondly, there's this business of beds for pet owners, both shelter beds and permanent supportive housing beds, just having a sense, one, what the inventory is, where they are, and then what services, if any, sort of how the department interacts with those places. Are there things that the department could do for facilities to make more beds available to pet owners? And then third, just some sense of the cost in terms of, how many, do we have a high concentration of pickups around homeless encampments? Is there a special procedure around homeless encampments? Since we know these are a regular part of life in Los Angeles at this point. And then also, are there more deaths? So are we picking up more deceased animals in and around homeless shelters?
Mr. Rue, anything to add? Yeah, I guess the other two things I'd add, and I guess we can then just forward it to council. One is to do what I suggested, that we do an analysis of what other jurisdictions are doing in terms of the services that they're offering to the pets of homeless individuals. And also, if we wanted to include the housing department to the list of reporting departments and ask for them to consult with the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority for their input on the report also. And I think with that direction, we can forward this to council. So without objection, that's what we will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 10.
Item number 10, motion Carezza-Farrell relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services and the Housing Community Investment Department to solicit input from tenant and landlord organizations in regard to programs and regulations that could facilitate the expansion of animal adoptions by tenants in residential rental properties, and further instructions to said departments to review the applicable laws in other cities in regard to them as using as a basis for developing regulations for the City of Los Angeles. This matter has also been referred to the Housing Committee.
Good morning.
Good morning again.
As with the previous motion, the department did expect to receive further instruction or more specific instruction from this body regarding what will be expected in the full report. But again, we have started to do some work in this area. For example, currently we are providing workshops to tenants, current tenants, regarding their rights as current pet owners, working with various organizations who provide legal representation and legal assistance to these tenants when necessary, when they have a need for that. So it was our hope that we would get a little more defined direction and be able to report in full following that direction.
Okay, and first, there's a technical amendment which reads, "Now I therefore move that the Los Angeles Department of Animal Services and the Housing and Community Investment Department solicit input from stakeholders in the Los Angeles rental housing market on approaches that could facilitate the expansion of animal adoptions by tenants in residential rental properties, including programs to better inform tenants of their rights in regards to animal ownership while taking into consideration the welfare of the animals and the concerns, both financial and for the physical property, that landlords and other tenants may have. And I further move that programs and concepts in other cities be reviewed to determine if their provisions should be considered as a basis for developing approaches applicable in the city of Los Angeles," which provides a little extra direction. Questions or comments, colleagues? We have a couple speakers from the public. I'll give them 2 minutes. Richard Otterstrom, to be followed by Phyllis Doherty.
Committee members, I'm Rick Otterstrom. I'm with AGLA and the Los Angeles Realtors. And I request that we be included in any input into a study on animal adoptions by tenants in apartments so that we can hash out the good and bad areas. I put on my card general comments because, I love animals. I have, my wife and I have 2 dogs, 2 parrots, and a fish tank. So we understand pets. And there are places for pets, and there are places where pets cause problems. For example, I have 5 employees in my business, which is property management and maintenance, and 3 of those 5 employees have pet allergies. When my maintenance people have to come in to deal with service in one of the apartments that has a pet, either a dog or a cat, and they have allergies, I have to go outside and hire an outside crew or contractor to come in and do that work. If I call a plumber, I have to tell them that, warn them that there is a dog or a cat been living in that apartment so they don't send somebody with allergies. I have tenants with allergies also that insist on being in a pet-free building. Not just a pet-free apartment, but a pet-free building because of their allergies or other medical situations. If I have a dog or a cat in a carpeted apartment, when that person moves, I have to change that carpet. No matter how good a shape it's in, I have to change it. That's a big expense. And dogs, ADA dogs that are in an apartment building with other pets can be attacked, and that ADA, like seeing eye dog, is destroyed for any purpose. So there's a lot of things we need to go into, and we'd like to be there. Okay?
That
Thank
would be
you.
great. And I have to say that's largely the intention of the motion, to create a collaborative environment where we can work more closely with apartment owners and organizations to try and find a voluntary way where we can all encourage more.
And that's why I didn't say we were opposed. We just want to be part of the crafting of whatever goes on to try and cover all these issues so that they don't become issues.
And that's,
we're happy to do it.
we will
I'd be
rely
happy
upon
to
you and
be there.
others to help us, so
Thank
you. Ms. Doherty?
Good morning, Phyllis Doherty. I am a landlord. I have been a tenant with a dog. I know what it's like. I moved from state to state. You call ahead, you find a property manager, and you say, I'll live anywhere if I can have my dog. And I've lived in some areas that people really wouldn't want to for that reason, 14 years. I know what the challenges are, but I'm also a landlord, and I have rent-controlled property. In my non-rent-controlled property, I will allow animals. My rent-controlled property, I do not, because I cannot maintain control over the interaction between allergy situations, possible attacks on other dogs or people in the building, and there is no remedy for us. We will be taken to court. It will be our responsibility, and we can lose our property, and mainly we can lose our insurance. I want to tell you that now we're talking about properties before 1976, so they're in older areas. Insurance is a major issue. In order to insure two properties that are before 1976, I have to anchor them to a condominium as a second home, which could be a rental. I lose the rent on that, I don't mind, because I can't get my homeowner's policy to cover these old buildings. That just gives you one example. Also, there's absolutely no proof that there's really a problem. The LA Times article said that 70% of renters have pets. The new buildings have amenities for them, and many, many of them share, and they have their pets there. The statistics on where people get pets, there's absolutely no nexus between the apartment renters and adoptions from shelters. 38% of people who have pets get them from family and friends. That means somebody down the street that bred. 22% come from shelters. 16% come from breeders. That will not change no matter how many apartments you make available. So we need to work harder on the $44 million budget and the items to cut down pet overpopulation. Then none of us will have to deal with this.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? If not, we'll move that item forward without objection. Item number 11. I should say as amended. Item number 11.
Item number 11, motion, Harris Dawson Courts, relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services to report showing the allocation and distribution of animal control services on South Los Angeles broken down by neighborhood and other small geographic regions.
Good morning. So the department has also been gathering information as requested by this motion. Councilman Harris Dawson's staff has made themselves available. We've been working very closely with members of his staff to get a better feel of some of the things that he'd like to see in the response. So for that, we thank you. We are looking at a number of things. There are some things that are on the motion that are easy to say. For example, we're open every day except Monday from 8 to 5. But there are some other things that, we want to get into a little bit of, how we can partner with CD8 and how we can address some of the issues surrounding the stray animals in the district, maybe how we can do a better job of being able to have a good estimate of the numbers that are out there, maybe some resources that might be out there for us. So we're doing quite a bit of work to respond to the issues that Councilman Harris Dawson has raised in this motion. Our DFO, Mark Salazar, will be available to come to make a full report pending any further instructions on this motion at your next meeting.
Very good. Mr. Harris Dawson, do you want to start with comments? And
No, I just want to thank the department for moving ahead on this, and our staff is very excited to work on this with you. Anthony Anderson, who's one of our staff members, was a mail carrier in the district for 25 years, so he knows where all the stray dogs hang out.
Mr. Rue, do you have any questions or comments? I have a couple. What's the timeline, if there is one yet, for deployment of additional animal control staff and new spay and neuter vehicles?
We just recently got a new mobile spay neuter contract that is going to be going to council very soon. In fact, I believe we transmitted to council earlier this week. So we're going to be waiting for the adoption of that contract, and we'll be able to add another spay neuter vehicle out there. Currently we have a contract only for one other mobile spay neuter van. We actually do also have these other vans that are not voucher related, and without getting into that big conversation and making it a little bit confusing, as it relates to having one more spay neuter van on the street, we have a contract in progress. I'm sorry, what was the other? Oh, about hiring people. So the Personnel Department has been working with us to ramp up the exam process. As a matter of fact, I was at the Personnel Department yesterday doing some interviews for a different classification, and I saw where the Animal Control Officer exam was being given. So they're giving it more than just on the weekend. I think they had 5 different test dates for the month of November, trying to give us a larger candidate pool. Right now, we have a list of approximately 28 candidates that we are going to be moving forward with to try to assemble a group as large as we can to be hired and start training by January. This is what we have projected to the mayor's office, and so we're working very hard to make sure we meet that projection.
And have we made any progress yet on addressing concerns about large numbers of stray dogs in South Los Angeles?
Well, I think I probably should leave that response to Mr. Salazar, because I don't want to misspeak, because that's part of the motion and part of the information gathering that's going on right now.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, we have, I believe, one speaker from the public first, Phyllis Doherty.
Hi, Phyllis Doherty. This time a little different position. I'm Director of Animal Issues Movement, and I'm also a trained humane officer, worked in animal control. I want to thank you so much for bringing up this issue, Councilman. At the last time there was a meeting held of the Commission down in South LA. By the way, I was born at 54th and Van Ness. I understand South LA, love it. I'm now in Echo Park. Not a lot of difference. We really live day to day. Everybody lives together. We don't have separations in these communities. So what affects one affects everybody. When we have these night meetings of the commission, they're held down at that god-awful shelter. They should be in your office up on Crenshaw or somewhere where people can come. One lady managed to come because she heard about it through her daughter who works for the department. And she told them, I'm terrified to walk out in my yard. People don't know what it's like to have dog packs coming where you can't get off your porch. I know how that feels. Dogs, when there's a female in season, they are all fighting. You may have a pack of 10 dogs killing each other. People should not have to live like this. There are people that use dogs as weapons to kill other people's pets, to prove their position, their respect in the community. We need to deal on a much more one-to-one basis. We need more education on a one-to-one basis. And you need the people that are having the problems to actually be able to get a very, very quick response. I want to tell you something else that I think would help. As far as licensing, we're doing it wrong. We should be using our advantages through the Postal Service and through Water and Power. We need to know who owns the properties where the problems are, not just who lives there. Because as an owner, I'm going to be the other side of the landlord. I have the responsibility for what happens on my property. If there are felonies committed or there's danger to the community, we need to link in to the assessor's office and have that information available and make people responsible.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. And you can stay where you are because we'll have public comment next. Any other comments or objections? If not, item number 11 will move forward and be approved. Public comment.
Okay, Phyllis Doherty. I want to know what's happening on the vehicles. Our officers are still out there with the vehicles falling apart. They did take away the one, I understand, with the steering wheel came off in their hands. The union is not helping. The officers basically have no help. We want them to get out there and be able to do their job. They do not have the equipment to do it. The officer that was attacked at 6:30 in the morning by a pit bull and trying to hold on to the one she did have captured so that it would not get out and hurt someone else, had to wait 45 minutes. There was no one at the shelter to answer. The emergency buttons on their radios don't go anywhere. Before 5 o'clock, they go to 311. I've got a pit bull out here has hold of my leg. Can you send somebody on the 311 number? That's how bad it is for these officers. So if they can't do their job properly, they cannot help the public. They need this equipment, and it's very disturbing. I don't know if you are getting my articles and reading them, but the department spent, at the same time that they were telling you they didn't have any money, they spent $31,112.68 in MICLA funds to buy a gator for the SMART team, which I understand just rode it down into the LA River to capture a squirrel who was living in a drain. Squirrels do that. And this is a needless use. At the same time, when they were in here, they said that for $21,000, you'll remember the testimony, they could change all the vents on those 10 vans that are fairly new vehicles. The officers love them. They're better for their backs. They don't have to lift the big, very aggressive dogs up so high. So the department spent $31,000 on the gator, which they now have all wrapped up in chains down at the shelter, and our vans can't go out and pick up the animals. So you need to carefully look at what's going on in this department internally. You're not getting the truth when they come in. I'm not speaking about Dana, God love her. She's doing her best, but she's very, very new, and she's limited in what she can discuss. You're not getting the truth about what's happening in this department, and we have such an obligation to help people and animals, make them safe, make their life comfortable by knowing that there will be someone who can and will respond to them. So please do what you can. One last thing, what are we doing about Caparo? We have had no report back from Mr. Salazar, who said by the end of the month, we will know whether or not we can file charges.
Thank you very much. Our only other item is item 5. I don't believe a staff person has magically appeared to present, so we will continue that to the next meeting of PAW, and otherwise we are adjourned.